Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'll call the May 19th meeting of the Common Council to order. Please call the roll.
Councillor Olson. Here. Councillor Fennessy. Here. Councillor Bender. Here. Councillor Sweeney. Here. Councillor McDonald. Here. Councillor Garfield. Here. Councillor Finsland. Here. Councillor Herrick. Here. Councillor Dennis Dahlbeck. Here. Councillor Esther Dahlbeck. Here.
Recognizing a quorum, I'll seek the consideration of the minutes for the minutes of May 5th. Heard the motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 5.1 is a public hearing for the 2015 Consolidated Annual Performance and Evaluation Report.
At this time, I'll call for a public hearing and ask those that wish to speak in favor of or against to do so now. For the second time, those that wish to speak in favor or against may do so now. And for the third and final time, those that wish to speak in favor of or against may do so now. Hearing and seeing none, I'll call the public hearing to a close and I ask the consideration of the council.
There's no action necessary on this item. Okay.
Thank you.
Item 7.1, City Clerk Burns is submitting the 2015-16
Consent agenda.
Sorry. Skipped right over that. Item number 6 is the consent agenda.
Heard a motion and second to approve. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Okay, now 7.1, Deputy City Clerk Burns is submitting the 2015-16 preliminary alcohol report. There are two parts that will both need different motions. Part 2 has been amended. Item C and item E have both been cleared up so they can be moved to Part 1, the applicants in code compliance.
Make a motion to approve the applicants who are code compliant. Second.
Heard the motion and second to approve the applicants that are code compliant. Any discussion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Part 2 are the applicants that have delinquent special assessments and or personal property taxes. A motion to set a public hearing June 2nd to non-renew these applicants would be in order.
Heard the motion as suggested. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Item 7.2, the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Superior Executive Director CERC is submitting a development agreement with the sale of real property to Kenneth and Barbara Chaleas.
Heard the motion and second. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
7.3, Steve Roberts, CSD Director, is recommending to award the engineering services for Faxon Creek Culvert Replacement Project at Hill Avenue to Donahue and Associates for $53,871.
Heard the motion and second to approve. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
ESD Director Roberts is recommending to award the bid for Fisher and Clough Avenue storm sewer improvements to A1 Excavating for $726,121.
Heard the motion and second. Discussion. Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
Item 9.1, Council President Fennessy and Vice President Dahlbeck are submitting in the 2015-16 committee assignments.
Heard the motion and second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried.
Item 9.2, Councilor Esther Dahlbeck is requesting an update on the rock crushing business on Catlin Avenue.
Councilor Dahlbeck.
Well, I'd just like to know where we are standing on this because from what I understand, he was supposed to be moving and that was almost going on a year now and he's still there and he's bringing in more and more rock and it's no improvement.
Right, and I appreciate that. We do. We have met with Mr. Payne and he is, negotiations are finalized with the Amoco the issues before him right now with the regulatory agencies to consummate and execute the purchase of the property so that it becomes his possession and be able to start dumping it there. But Jason may have further information.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor and Esther. Mayor is correct. Talked to Fred today, and he's in the process of finalizing. Yes, he is hauling in currently right now because he doesn't really have any other place to go with it. We are continually kind of pressuring him to keep moving, and he's actually, I think, wanting to move. He's actually had his eye on this property in the north end, the old Amico dock property, for quite some time because it does have a dock, and he would like to get into that side of the business. He has a barge and would like to do that. So keep pushing him. Again, Mayor stated that he has met with the Corps of Engineers. He's met with the DNR on site. They're working through a couple of approvals, and hopefully that will get taken care of. Yes, this is taking a while, but sometimes in these deals, particularly for this property, which has kind of been on the list of contaminated property, and most recently, and not recently, has had actually free-flowing product on it, which has been taken care of. So there's some things there too. So I guess we just want to continue and keep pushing him. He's going to probably continue to keep hauling rock into that site. It's zoned M1. He's allowed to store rock there. We have a dilemma. I have a crushing plant down in South Superior, asphalt plant that is also zoned M1. So we've got there's kind of a balance there. So I think we've got to kind of work a little bit continue to work with Fred, and hopefully he will be willing to move on.
Well, I have a question now. With him hauling in all this dirt, it's contaminating the streets. Well, I'm not contaminating, but it is getting into the streets. It's getting into our houses. Our houses are, you have no idea how dirty windowsills and siding is. Is there any way we can be compensated for that? Because, washing the house with pressure hoses, I mean, you have to do it all the time. And the windowsills, you could not believe, I should have brought my rags here today to show you how bad it is. And these ladies out here, they live right next door to it practically, and they have it worse than I do.
Yeah. I guess, there is a program I know in Eloise and Itasca that BNSF does follow and does reimburse folks. I can look into that and see what the deal is. I think our first goal, though, is to have him leave. But I will definitely look to see, Esther, if you want me to investigate that, I can do that.
I would appreciate that. You say our first goal is to have him leave, but that could be how many months down the road?
It could be. I'm not gonna lie to you.
Right. So, in the meantime, what are we supposed to do? We're still washing our cars. We're still doing our houses. We're still breathing it. I mean,
Yep.
Somehow he has to make some effort to keep it cleaner than what he is. I don't know if he's spraying. He says he's spraying, but there's days when he's just hauling that stuff in and he's not spraying it down. It just flies everywhere.
Councilor Olson?
Is there a way that we could have a street cleaner down there and wash in the road and back charge him for it, for the inconvenience to the neighborhood?
I think we can send him a notice to correct and have him do it. And if he doesn't, then we will be able to do that. And I've got Tammy working on that as of right now. So, I encourage also the residents, and I've talked to Councilor Dahlbeck about this, is call building inspection if he's tracking. I mean, it's the only way we can continue to up the pressure on him to maintain the area, because it's wet and he's tracking. I know he is. So we got to continue to do that as well.
President Fennessy?
Jason, I know it's hard to put a time frame on something like this when he'd get approvals and that, but it seems like we should be able to put some sort of a timeline on for him to keep moving. Otherwise, this is just going to keep dragging on.
That's right.
And if there's any way of having him, if he can't meet that time frame, approach council and explain
Sure.
where he is with it.
I will.
I hate to keep having you as a bad guy, and I think we need to pressure Mr. Payne into actually coming before the council and explaining where he is with the process and what he's doing. I think he owes that to the council and to the public.
I appreciate that, and I will talk to him. I think it would be good to get something in writing from him on a timing standpoint.
Yep.
Mayor, do you agree with that? And have him then come to the council if that's what we'd like to do.
Yeah, and I understand that government works slow, especially DNR, Army Corps,
Yeah.
all that, but still, if we don't keep the fire underneath it, it's just gonna kind of keep dragging on.
I agree.
One of my recent messages was just that, to let's have a timeline of completion and what steps have to be taken to get to that completed timeline date.
If I may, Mayor, councilors, and I don't really want to push off anything on some of my peers at the Department of Natural Resources, but I guess I would like maybe a motion or something where I can have a little bit more behind asking them to keep up on their air quality inspections. I don't believe they're doing any because it's a small area, so I don't know what that means. I mean, I could be a letter from Bruce as well, but it would be something I think that would help at least put some more pressure on him.
I would recommend we do a resolution with a letter from the mayor on top of it, if that could prepare a resolution for the next council meeting.
And I would like to make the motion that we do get, how do you want it worded, that we have them, how do we?
Measure air quality.
Measure the quality of air,
Yep.
is that what you want? or
I would
what?
say
Or the-
fulfill their obligations under the air permit that they have granted.
Okay, fulfill their obligations under the air permit they have granted.
I'll second that.
For the motion and second to do the resolution encouraging the DNR to enforce the air quality permits as they should be. Councilor Dahlbeck.
Yes, Jason, one of the problems that we have down there, the height of these piles is one of the big problems. Maybe we need to look at introducing an ordinance that would limit the height on these piles, which would reduce the amount of dirt or whatever he could put in the place. So maybe we need to look at that.
Okay.
That would definitely solve the problem if you could only put it up to a height of 10 to 15 feet.
That's a good point.
That's one of the problems down there is the height of it. The wind blows it right off the top.
Correct. President Fennessy?
Yeah, and Councilor Dalbeck, I totally agree with you, but Jason, can we pinpoint an area with those restrictions? Because if we blanket at the city, Midwest Energy is going to be affected.
Yep.
A lot of those. So I think we need to be careful if we're going to go down that road.
And I've quite frankly looked at many ways to tackle how we enforce what we're doing, everything from a special use permit, which I think is probably something we're going to end up probably going to on if we cannot get down the road. But that means every crushing plant's going to have to go through a special use permit process every year. And so that leads us to then having potentially an issue in South Superior, and which I don't think we have any issues, but it also could open that up where we could not be crushing asphalt and making asphalt in South Superior. So those are some things that we need to look at. And I understand the neighbors, and this is, in my opinion, probably not the best spot for this. It's a better spot in South Superior, but again, there are some things that if we kind of go down that path, we're going to have to figure out how to make things work if if certain things happen.
Thank you. Councilor Esther Dahlbeck?
Well, my concern is, he said Midwest Energy. Well, that's how many blocks or a couple miles at least from the nearest home. This is right on top of
Right.
homes. This is at least a quarter of a block from the nearest home. It's right next door to the Boys and Girls Club. It's Catlin Courts is right there, and there's houses within throwing a stone's throw. So I mean, we're dealing with this rock crushing business right in the residential area, right in the middle of where people live.
Understood.
Councilor Sweeney?
What I was going to say, I think Jason clarified that I was concerned about unintended consequences. But then my other comment, I'm getting some mixed messages. Is he a willing participant in moving?
Yes. Yes,
So he is moving along. He's not holding up anything at this time.
he is not. He is trying to get through the red tape.
So in your estimation, he's in good faith doing these
Yes,
things? Oh,
yes,
okay.
he is.
All right.
Yes, definitely.
Thank you. I know there are several people in the audience that may want to address this issue before the council, and you've taken the time to come up here. I'm sorry.
Sorry.
Counselor?
Yes, there's still a motion on the floor, I believe, but I just wanted to ask the question because the agenda item is not a resolution to the DNR, and I would recommend that we let you, Mr. Mayor, write the resolution and then vote on it in the next meeting rather than voting on a resolution that wasn't on the agenda.
Right.
That was the motion.
That was the motion.
That was the motion.
The motion, okay, thank you for the clarification.
Would anybody care to speak to the issue at this moment?
And folks, as you work your way to the microphone, I'd remind you that we have a 3-minute limit on comments to the council. Thank you.
Hi, I just have 2 questions. Michelle Johnson, 1002 Catlin. The product that's located on the residential property, is he being fined for that?
He's going to be asked to remove it.
We were told last summer he was asked to remove it.
He will be more forcefully asked to remove it.
So he's not gotten any fines.
No, he hasn't.
So that's what money does in this town. What's there, is that going to be crushed?
I do not know, Michelle. I can certainly ask if he is going to be crushing it, but I do not know. I do not know. He has said to us, he has said to the mayor and I that he will not be crushing.
That's all I have.
Any others wish to speak to the issue?
Hi, my name's Levita Flayton, and I live at 818 North 7th Street. And I guess I am still asking how this even got there. Last year, nobody could give us any answers. I mean, in this city, can you just move a business, just move in and say, I'm going to be here? We've never gotten an answer.
I appreciate that, and it's been there long before I came back to town.
Yes, and
It
I
was not
realize
there
that.
when I left, but I can't answer that question. I'm sorry.
I know. Nobody's been able to give us an answer. Why is that?
It is actually an allowed use. It is not the best spot for that. I understand that. There are no permitting mechanisms for us as a city to permit that. But there is an air quality permit that we had discussed earlier with the council that is required. The zoning code, whether we like it or not, and sometimes we don't like it, is very prescriptive, but it's also, there is some subjectivity to it. So there is some things that are allowed that maybe shouldn't be allowed, and they are. And this is an M1 manufacturing district.
Okay, another thing I would like documented, the gate not being closed at night. I mean, I came home, the one date was the 12th, I can tell you that, and it was 9 o'clock at night, the gates were still open. My daughter works afternoon, she'll come home many nights, they're open. So I want that documented, so if a child is ever found in those piles, that can be very dangerous. A few of us were talking earlier, if we were younger, we'd probably be climbing on it. Kids do that, and I'd hate to see something like that happen. Okay? And like I said, we've been waiting a year now. Another summer, another power washing, I am doing windows and stuff all the time. I take care of my little granddaughter. I have to hose the driveway off like twice a day. It's ridiculous. I've lived there 42 years. It's never been like this before he moved in there. So please help us. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your concern very much. There's a motion on the floor. Would you please repeat the motion?
The motion is to bring back a resolution to the next meeting, which would be June 2nd, to request the DNR fulfill their obligations for air quality inspection that they permitted.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? The motion is carried. Thank you.
Item 10.1 is a resolution of the City of Superior approving the report of the Redevelopment Authority of the City of Superior regarding the development agreement with Kenneth and Barbara Shalis.
For the motion in multiple seconds, any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
11.1 is an ordinance introduced by the City Attorney amending City Code Chapter 2, Section 2.32, call to order.
What is the pleasure? You've heard the motion and second. Discussion? Hearing, seeing none. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is carried.
Item 12.1, building inspection is going to do a presentation regarding the condition of some rental properties within the city. It's kind of, yeah, it's different.
Mr. Pruitt? Mr. Pruitt?
Good evening. Thank you for this opportunity to make this brief presentation this evening. On January 24th, 2013, a presentation similar to this was made by Building Inspection to a group of city officials, administrators, and Mayor Hagan. And it was similar, it's not the same presentation. We believe that that presentation may have played a part in the formation of the Rental Property Study Ad Hoc Committee. For this reason, Building Inspection would like to make a similar presentation to the City Council members. The pictures speak for themselves, but we make this disclaimer. If there's anyone here from the media, please note the pictures are not representative of the majority of the rental properties in the city. And the pictures are not meant to speak in any negative or to create any negative reflection on the landlords who own and manage these properties. But the pictures do represent the lower baseline, some of the properties that are in Superior. And we just want to make this presentation. I'll go through the slides quickly. If you wish to ask questions, I'm open to it, but it's your meeting, not mine. So if there are no questions, I'll just go through them quickly. This is one of two stairways going to a second-story dwelling. The other stairway was not quite as bad. This is above. There's a dwelling unit on the first floor. Oh, excuse me. The doorway to the apartment is on the left, and there's no guardrails or handrails. The flexible ducting there is actually a closed dryer. So we have a closed dryer and a water heater going into the same opening, and it's really a masonry chimney behind that wall. If you can see, the underside of that solid duct is split open. and it's just a real hazard. This picture was taken in a building that basically there was a squatter in there for 2 years. They had no water turned on, and they were catching water somewhere and running it through their sink, but the place had no water for 2 years. I wouldn't want to change that light bulb. It's difficult to see how this step is actually attached to the landing above. I wouldn't want to try walking on it. A lot of bathroom floors are just rotted out. There's no handles on the faucets. The sink is not working. Our property maintenance code says that the bathroom floor should be a cleanable surface. The window, top of the window is just rotted away. This hole in the trim, there's actually a squirrel in the corner of the eave. Those squirrels do this kind of damage. These are wires that are chewed, and there's bare wires showing. This is evidence of squirrel damage, or not evidence, it is squirrel damage. This hole in the wall is the backside of a squirrel's nest. So and it was just covered over with some duct tape and paint. Same house. Light fixture totally corroded. Smoke detectors had not been changed or battery maintained for many years. This water heater exhaust vent was within less than an inch from the floor joist above. It was already starting to not corrode, but to burn and char. The floor joist is blackened in that area. These three pictures are all of the same building, but you can see how the basement wall is just caving in. A different basement wall that's pushed in basically 2.5 inches already, and it's this particular one is in the process of being repaired. This is an example of weather sealing, weather stripping, duct tape. That's the door on the outside. Another cleanable bathroom surface. This group of pictures were all in the same structure, and it was rented out in this condition. Still the same. Still the same. This is the stairway going down to the basement in the same structure. The basement walls are just caving in. I'm happy to report that this building was totally demolished. This is looking from the attic, it's a bathroom exhaust fan, which is improperly installed, and this is how we found it, covered up so nobody would know it's there. These are all the same roof, really poor condition. Bird nest built under the shingles. These next two slides are together. Not too bad from this view. There's not a lot of pitch on the exhaust from the water heater, but if you look closer, it's just corroded away. Invitation for carbon monoxide. This next group of pictures demonstrate just various water leaks on a roof coming through the ceiling, the drywall falling off. This is mold growing on the wall. in the same room. This is probably a different room, this is a different building, but just an example of things that we see out there. Water leaks. The significance of this slide is 30 amp fuses in probably a 15 or probably no more than a 15 amp circuit. Condition of some of the bathrooms. The floors are just rotting away. No guardrail, handrail on the stairway. An open hole in the chimney, carbon monoxide, another open hole. More squirrel damage. I believe these next group of pictures are all from the same house. There's a pigeon up in the soffit. And this building was rented like this. Open sewage just leaking into the basement. This group is all the same from the a boiler that was incorrectly installed with a carbon monoxide safety valves plugged, no clearance to combustibles. Again, all the same picture yet, same structure. And this is how it was rented. The faucets on the tub or excuse me, the valves in the tub are missing. This window is on above the tub, as you can see it right there. The tub is in the lower left. There's a window and a homemade shelving unit on the right side. This is a different structure. Does not meet minimum standards in terms of headroom. It's not. The bottom side of that door was cut off just to make it fit. I think a person 5 feet tall would have to duck through that doorway. Missing smoke detectors, CO detectors. The pictures that we've seen previous to this were the responsibility for them would lie heavily on the landlords. This is the final set of pictures. This is the opposite perspective. The tenant in this apartment, through her lack of maintenance and upkeep, caused thousands of dollars of damage. It took the landlord weeks to clean this apartment. And we assisted the landlord in having her evicted, like immediately, along with the health department. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Say, Pete, I have a couple comments and a question too. First of all, my comment is that squirrels run rampant in the neighborhood in which I live. Now, they haven't gotten into the eaves or anything like that, but when I had DirecTV as opposed to Dish Network, they chewed through the you know, the cable coming from the satellite. And I did call the animal control officer, and what she said is, I said, "Is there anything you can do?" Not really. So, and that was going to be my question, what can we do? But she had already said there really isn't anything we can do as far as squirrels. And boy, do they run a lot at night and all 24 hours a day. I just wanted to throw that observation in. And also, thank you. I've seen this numerous times, but thank you. It's a shock to everyone who sees this and thinks, and to be thinking that people are living like this. So thank you for this presentation. It was quite an eye-opener.
You're welcome.
I have questions. I noticed some of the slides were from 2010, 2011, 12, 13. Has any of that been worked on, fixed, or does it all look the same from?
Some of the buildings have been demolished. Some have been fixed. There are some that have not been fixed. So some of those may still be there.
Thank you.
Counselor Sweeney?
Could you put this in perspective for me so I understand numbers and percentages? Of what you showed me is, I assume, the worst. So is that what X percent of that is the rental units in Superior? And what percent is owned by, is it owned by 100 of, if there are 100 of those pictures, are they owned by 100 separate individuals, or is it owned by 1 or 3? I need to get a perspective of what we're talking about here.
Thank you for the question, Councilor Sweeney. That particular question I do not have the answer to, because it is a question that the committee, the Rental Property Study Committee, has been dealing with for the last 2.5 years, 2.25 years. And there is no easy means to gain the information. We have no, that's part of the report that Millie will be giving. We don't have an answer to that question. We don't know.
If I may, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Councilor Dahlbeck?
Well, I just have a question. It's my understanding that building inspection cannot go into an apartment or a home unless they are called. If there's something horrific going on, you might not even be aware of it, and these people are afraid to call because they might be evicted. Is that the norm?
That is true. At the present time, unless we are invited by the tenant or the landlord, the last pictures I showed you, the landlord invited us or requested that we give him assistance. But when the coins are flipped, it's the landlord seldom calls us for a bad property. It's the tenant. The tenants, to some extent, yes, we hear that both ways, that they are afraid, or they at times they'll call us when they are being evicted 2 days before they're leaving. We have to make that judgment. Is it a legitimate call? And we go there and they're complaining about a loose screen door. Well, to me, that we say that's not legitimate. You know, we do a little with that. But when we find other situations, then even if they're being evicted, if it's really bad, we may take the opportunity to create some kind of enforcement action.
Okay, say I get a phone call from somebody and they tell me, this is how I'm living, I'm having this kind of problem with my landlord, he won't do this, he won't do that. If I call you and say, I got this phone call, could you then go in or not?
If you invite building inspection in, if you still have occupancy of the building.
Okay.
If you've already turned in your keys and you've left, then you no longer have occupancy of the building.
Because I have received phone calls from people who are living in substandard conditions,
Right.
and they are afraid to call. And I have called, and I know building inspection has, in some occasions, sat outside to observe some of the things which they could do, but could not go inside because they weren't invited in. That's the norm, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
If I may, first of all, I want to thank you. You're working with reduced staffing. I think you're doing an excellent job with the tools that you have available to you and your team. And you're fighting against the oldest housing stock in the state of Wisconsin, which is, I even hate to say that, but it's true. We're an old community. Mm-hmm. And many buildings have served their time. I'd like to request a couple things. First of all, one would be a listing of buildings that are on the list to be raised, those that are under investigation for critical improvement or remedial, and those that may not survive the test. Then when we receive that, I will be asking the council for the authority and the wherewithal to take care of some of these structures. It averages about $8,000 to $10,000 to take down a three-bedroom home, and that's incumbent upon the taxpayers if the parties that own it aren't willing to do that. So it doesn't take long to spend $50,000 on taking down several or more buildings. But I think we need to pay attention to that more than maybe we as an administration have been. So I think it's a start. I also would like us, I will be talking to you folks about this, and I don't know the reality of this, but it appears to me that on face value, we probably have, I'm going to say 40% of the outbuildings in this town that should come down, garages, outbuildings, and so forth. And I think we need to take a very proactive and very forceful stand on that. It's the only way that we're going to begin turning the tide with regard to not just the housing stock in this community, but providing opportunities for new housing and fill-in within neighborhoods that we have, as well as working to develop new subdivisions like we are. But I think it's time, I think it's overdue, that we step up, like many other communities that we're all familiar with, to take a more firm stand with regard to specific deadlines, no turning back, and being forceful about it. And I'm not saying that we aren't. I'm just saying that there's so much out there with the few tools you have. I think we're probably going to require the greater tools in order to firmly bring this message home. And I don't want to dwell on this, but housing in this community is the 900-pound gorilla in the room. We have jobs in this town. We have jobs that are going unfilled because of skills that may not be there. But what we're finding, and seriously finding, is that people that will come to town for these quality jobs that we have, a lot of manufacturing, way on the upside and so forth, don't live here. And why don't they live here? It isn't where they can find the home, the dwelling, the occupancy that they desire for their family and perhaps can afford. I think we're racing to the bottom with regard to cheap rent, just to capture the opportunity, and we need to reverse that trend. Coincidentally, the Duluth paper this Sunday, I did a few calculations on the housing that's being constructed over there, the market rate housing apartments. The average of those 577 dwellings that are being constructed, the average is $200,000. Went from $495,000 per key down to $156,000 per key. And what I submit is that even if it's 5% of those dwellings that are found to be desirable by the people in the city of Superior, that's 5% of the people in the city of Superior that can afford that won't be living here. So I think it's not a city problem, it's a community problem. It's a problem we have among us with regard to our own homes, rental property, trying to turn the tide with regard to all types of property we have in Superior. And it is the 900-pound gorilla that is preventing us from succeeding, growing, and developing into a neighborhood community that otherwise could be more prosperous. But I want to thank you, and I also want to turn my attention to the rental committee. You've been at this for a year and a half or more, I'm not sure, Millie, as the chair, and many people from the committee are here this evening. I want to thank you for the many endless hours and testimony and research that you provided. And working with you, I think, and the building inspection and the Common Council, I think we can get there together with regard to having the requirements that are necessary to prove and to provide that we can provide the housing that is desirable and necessary for the community. I think it's a force that we need to recognize as the primary focus within our community, because everything else will grow around it. People are anxious to come here. People are coming here. There's people that live here that are getting these quality jobs. I mean, the unemployment rate's 3.8%. That's unheard of in at least my lifetime. But the issue is, where are they living? And I submit that they're not living here for the large part. We need to correct that trajectory. And I thank you very much. Counselor?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for the presentation. I think this is providing the general public with some excellent information regarding the state of some of the rental properties in Superior. As the city councilor that represents the downtown area of Superior, I am a renter myself in Superior. And due to my daytime job, I'm a letter carrier. I get to see at least the entryways to a lot of these properties, many of which are presumably rental properties. And so I think it's really important that the general public is aware of the fact that even the access to a lot of these rental properties is currently in very poor condition. Beyond your mailmen, I have a lot of concern for police and firefighters if they, in the case of emergency, need to get into these properties. Sometimes the stairways look completely unstable or the porches are collapsing in. And I'm, of course, really concerned with children and families, tenants living in these situations. So it's something that we as a community have to come together to really address in a meaningful way and make sure that people who are renting our community are not only positive about their rental experience, but that they're safe as a baseline for living in Superior. So I thank the mayor for his work on this issue. I thank building inspection as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you. President Fennessy?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize something that Pete already said. I hope we're not painting a black picture for all rental property. We've got a lot of good landlords here, and there's some sitting in the audience. And so really want to commend those landlords that are taking care of their properties and taking care of their tenants. This is just a small group, but it's a visible group. It's something that's really causing a problem. But so anyways, I just want to commend the landlords that have taken initiative and kept up their property and been providing good rental property.
Thank you. Any further comments to come before this body on this particular issue?
Okay. Item 12.2 is Millie Ronsville on behalf of the Rental Property Study Committee, presenting a PowerPoint and some recommendations from the committee.
Hopefully I can get this to work here. Pete, how did you make this big?
Go to slideshow.
Yeah, you gotta go to slideshow. It's not my forte on somebody else's computer.
There you go.
So essentially, our group has been meeting for quite a period of time. We had kind of done the first part of our project, reported back, and one of the things that we felt was missing was the public comment piece. So what we did is we held 4 public meetings. We located them in 4 different areas of town to seek input. Those were not heavily attended. What we did do was the surveys. We had some great media attention for SurveyMonkey. It was ran by all of our local newspapers, the Duluth newspaper, Superior newspaper. It was on the city's website, Fox 21 News, WDIO. So what I'm presenting for you tonight is the result of that survey. What I'm presenting, like I said, is purely out of SurveyMonkey what the responses were. So we haven't altered this as a committee. We have, if there's certain areas you want more information on, such as individual comments, there was thousands. We could certainly send those out. So just adding that as a caveat that this is what was presented in the data. We didn't change it in any way. So like I said, we had a great response rate. We chose to break the surveys, and being such a diverse group that we are, I think it took us about 6 meetings to agree on our survey questions. But we decided to break it into 3 groups. We looked at tenants and renters, we looked at landlords, and we also looked at community members. Being the diverse group that we were, we had landlords, we had people that represent tenants, city departments, Trying to think of who else. Realtors, bankers. But one of the things that we were hearing from some of our community members was an opportunity for folks to comment that maybe owned a business in Superior or were a member of the Superior community but didn't feel they'd fall in the landlord or renter group. So that's kind of where this third community group came from. So one of the questions we asked was where renters lived. And you all have this, of course, in your packets as well. 48% were living in an apartment building, 28% in a duplex, and 25% in a single-family home. One of the things that we've struggled with since we started was trying to find a number of rental units. And we could not find a good source to tell us, does Superior have 4,000 units, 5,000 units, 2,000 rental units? But we never found a decent source to determine how many rental units we have. Part of that, obviously, has to do with multiple sources. Maybe there's a sewage for a source. We don't necessarily know if somebody's not living there, if they're renting it out. There has been instances where people have taken a single-family home and moved it into a duplex without people knowing about it. But that was one thing that we really struggled with, was trying to get an accurate number of rental units. But we did feel it was important to find out where people were living. And in this case, almost half the people that completed the survey were in a triplex or larger. We also thought it was important to find out, in terms of the rental units, how many own and manage in Superior, own but don't manage in Superior, manage but don't own in Superior, and own outside of Superior. And the 1 or 2, 3 to 5, that represents the number of units. Just to kind of give us a perspective in terms of property owners, how many units they had. I don't think I need to read this slide for slide. We'll just, okay. Upkeep, we were curious in terms of who performs these functions. So this was a question that was asked to the landlords and the tenants. Who does those specific tasks running along the top tab? And if it was the landlord, a tenant in the building, a property manager, or other. Residential units per neighborhood. Again, we were trying to gauge responses to see how many rental units or housing units were in a neighborhood.
What quantified a neighborhood? What was your criteria for a neighborhood?
I have the tools. I didn't bring them with me, but it was in your block, how many rental units are there? And 32% of people thought there was 1 to 2 residential units. So obviously would be the average response that was here. This was actually kind of interesting. 60% of renters have lived in Superior an average of 5 years, which was higher than what we had expected. These kind of reinforced theories. 80% of the tenant surveys had a written lease. 60% have a good understanding of their lease. And 92% have contact information for their landlord. We asked the 3 most important responsibilities of tenants, and this was the questions we asked tenants. They identified paying rent on time, respecting and maintaining the landlord's property, and reporting need for repairs. And when we asked the tenants what's the 3 most important responsibilities of their landlord, those were the top 3 responses. These were landlord questions. So 95% of the landlords that responded said they obtain a rental history. 84% said they do background checks. 59% say they do credit checks. And 74% say they've adjusted rent or made compromises for a good tenant. This is the same question that we had asked. Sorry, my elbow does that. We asked the landlords the same 3 questions as we asked the tenants, and these were the responses from the landlord, that their top 3 important responsibilities were safety, maintenance, and finding good tenants. and their biggest challenges were trustworthy tenants, city ordinances, involvement in rental issues, and tenants paying rent on time. These are questions that we had asked of both groups. 92% of tenants believe a check-in or check-out sheet would reduce disputes between landlords and renters. And actually, the state of Wisconsin does require that. 79% of landlords state that they use a check-in sheet, 97% when renters move in, and 90% when they move out. But only 38% of the renters state they received a check-in sheet. Again, these are questions that we thought had a priority in terms of narrowing them down. But the number of tenants that said their place was ready when they moved in with no visible defects was 52%. But 99% of landlords say their units are rent ready when tenants move in. 44% of renters said detected repairs were not handled to their satisfaction. And only 10% of the tenants surveyed contacted an enforcement agency for an unresolved problem. 44% of landlords check the interiors of their properties at least once every 6 months, and 38% do an interior check upon turnover. So this is how often landlords are inspecting the inside of their properties. That responded to our survey. "66% of renters found it difficult to locate suitable rentals. And then we asked them how they found their rental units. More than 70% used the internet to locate a rental unit. There was about 12 options people could have picked, and 70% says they used the internet to find their apartment. Price was the single largest reason for accepting a rental that was below their expectation. So 87% of people said if they took a unit that was below their expectation, what was the reason? 87% said price, and 15% said it had to do with their rental history. These were community questions. So 26% considered rental units in their neighborhood to be in good condition. 36% considered rental units in their neighborhood to be average, and 35% considered rentals in their neighborhood to be in poor condition. This, I think, goes back to a point that Mr. Hagan had just made a few minutes ago. 65% of community members said they knew friends or relatives who moved out of Superior or would not move to Superior because of deteriorating neighborhoods. 40% of property owners believe rental properties in their area negatively affect the value of their property. 33% were unsure. 77% of property owners said the condition of any rental units has negatively affected the values of the properties in Superior. These were the same questions that we presented before in terms of the landlord and tenant responses. And again, we asked the same questions of the community. And those were the top 3 challenges the community thought were for landlords was finding responsible tenants, maintenance costs and general upkeep, and legal city ordinance issues and taxes. And that the top 3 responsibility of landlords are maintaining a property, safe and adequate housing, and screening of tenants. This was a question that we added as well regarding city involvement in rental licensing. 50% of landlords do not think the city has a responsibility regard to rental housing. 86% of renters believe the city of Superior has a responsibility regarding rental housing. And 78% of community members said the city of Superior has a responsibility with regard to rental property. And then in terms of developing a program or a committee to look at rental property, we asked that question as well. 36% of landlords said they'd be interested in serving on an advisory board or committee, 42% of tenants, and 28% of community members. And then these were some of the final remarks. So there was an opportunity where people could provide comments. So we included those in the presentation as well. I'll let people read them on their own. Everybody good? If you notice any typos or grammars, this is how it was exported out of SurveyMonkey. It wasn't changed. So, like I said, there's a variety of comments. If people want to actually see the huge PDF that came out with all the individual responses, one of the counselors, I'd be happy to provide that as well. But we thought it'd be important at least to report back to the city and let you know about our survey and how people responded. So they do continue to go on. At this point, kind of our purpose, when this group was established, we had like this really huge purpose. And we're a very diverse group of individuals with a variety of opinions. So one of the things that we've also talked about is community housing. We found it difficult to narrow ourselves down to just rental housing as opposed to housing as a group. I know another item that has changed since we last looked at things was the La Crosse issue in terms of their rental licensing. So that was something that we hadn't had a chance to look at. That went into place since the first part of our project. But we did agree on a few things, which is in page 3 of the letter that was submitted with recommendations. So as a group, we were able to agree on a few areas that we're recommending as future steps and recommendations. The top of that list is identifying rental properties. Like I said, we couldn't find a solid source to be able to determine that information. We did all agree that there should be a fair and consistent process using standardized minimum criteria to operate rental properties. We did agree on considering different ways to incorporate program standards. We all agree that there's an education that's required in our community for landlords and tenants. Clearly, some of the responses on the surveys, we clearly have a need in our community for landlord-tenant education. And then also, regardless of what is done going forward, looking at ways to fund a potential program that would be long-term sustaining. So that was where we were at. If anybody has any other questions, I'd be happy to take them. It's been a pleasure working on this group and working with the fellow members of the committee.
I have one question regarding the 3 recommendations. Is it the intent or desire to then work with the administration, the Common Council, to flesh out those 3 recommendations as to full impact or implementation? Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Comments from the Common Council? Councillor Herrick.
Yeah, just one question. How many people were actually involved in the survey? We got the percentages, but what were the actual numbers as far?
It's on page 2.
Page 2?
We had 178 tenants, 73 landlords, and 162 community members that completed the survey.
All right, thank you.
Matter, it's going to be an evolving discussion. It'll be an evolving discussion as we move forward and making the recommendations and improvements as we go. So we look forward to, and we also thank all of you for a very hard work, very difficult work for a long period of time, and thank you so much. Is there any further business to come before this body? If not, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. You've heard the motion. Second, we stand adjourned.